You're listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 964. My name is Connor Kilpatrick. This is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
I was told to look at the camera but not be creepy, and I don't know how to do. I don't know how to intentionally. When I try to be not creepy, it looks creepy. I just
to be told not to be creepy makes you creepy. But
yeah, there's almost no way around it.
And joining
us
sound
like you're lying. Yeah,
Joining us this week in the third chair, Dr. Ryan Haupt.
Connor, Josh is looking at me. Get him to stop.
Well, that's the downside to all this.
Right now, Ryan and I are hooded Americans, and you are an unhooded American.
It's true.
And it's cold here, but
you'll find that I'm a hooded American pretty much from October through June.
It just sounds bad when you say it that way.
That's
this is iFanboy 2025,
exactly
and it's our 20th year of doing the show, our 25th year of doing iFanboy, and that means every week for 25 years, one of us has picked the book they like the best. From their stack of comics, we called it the pick of the week. We're going to talk about that book, other books from the week, the Patron Pick, the listener mail. We have a fun time. This is your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution. This week, Ryan, you had the pick.
I sure did. And the pick of the week this week was Bug Wars #1, story by Jason Aaron, art by Mahmoud Asrar, colors by Matthew Wilsons, and letters by Becca Carey, published by Image Comics.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm doing something else. I'm in my own world. Just don't ignore me.
As soon as I started reading this, I had a feeling it was going to be
I had a little stroke. I think I had a little comic book stroke. Sorry, Ryan.
It's okay. As soon as I started reading this, I had a feeling it was going to be a strong contender for the pick of the week. And then by the end of it, I was pretty damn certain just because it, man, this ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's Jason Aaron, a frequent appearer on the pick of the week list. And
was it last week?
Was it?
Was he also pick of the week last week?
Superman?
Or was it 2 weeks ago?
He was Superman at least 2 weeks ago, or 2 issues ago. I don't remember.
No, last week was Batman Offworld.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. 2 weeks in a row for Jason.
My fanboy by the numbers is going.
This is his third. This is his third pick this year, and we're just starting in February.
3 different books.
Yeah, 3 different books. It's a Jason Aaron Renaissance.
So this book begins as sort of a sword and sandals battle between beetles and ants that quickly ends with a mysterious force massacring them that we then learn is the lawnmower of a guy mowing his yard in Alabama. And then it transitions to a sort of family breakdown story about a dead dad and a mom with 2 boys. And the one boy loves bugs like his dad did. And the other boy hates bugs because of what they did to his dad. And
the correct boy. The second one is what you mean.
I felt a lot more for the first boy who loves the bugs.
My feeling is Ryan is a little blonde boy, and Josh and I are angsty, older, long-haired. I don't like bugs. I understand why bugs are important.
I'm really right between them.
I hate bugs.
When I was a kid, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So, I mean, I loved this up until the point where it transitioned to the story about the family, and then I sort of had to dive back in again. But as I did, I was just like, man, this is great. But then the younger brother who loves bugs gets sucked into micro bug world with a rhino stag beetle that is descended from one of the ones his dad kept, and so it's just this crazy like family drama, but sword and sandals bug war book in the yard of this home in Alabama. And I mean, Mahmoud Asrar's art is amazing. He did the Conan book with Jason Aaron, so we already know he excels at this type of arch high fantasy storytelling, and just to do it in the world of the blades of grass and bugs was just really fun and interesting and different. And I think Jason Aaron said it in his little essay, but he basically said, this is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets Game of Thrones. And I was like, I'm in. That's all I need. Done.
There's the third element to that, which I think is a little bit of Birthright, Josh, that Joshua Williamson book, where the kid gets sucked into like a fantasy world and has to become a warrior. There's a lot of that in here where this kid is now on the cover, he's got armor and an axe. So it's a heavy dose of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's a heavy dose of Birthright. It's a heavy dose of Game of Thrones. And as the essay says in the back, a heavy dose of the fantasy life that Jason Aaron lived in his head in his house in Alabama as a kid in his overgrown yard.
And it's
a great idea. House. Yeah, it's just his house. His house. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great idea to like in the backyard full of bugs and creatures is a tiny fantasy world playing out. it's totally a kid's fantasy idea.
Yeah, and I love that like the unorganized beetles are sort of the barbarian, the hordes amassing at the gates of Rome, and the anthill is sort of the Roman centurions with their civilization and their like
order.
Workers and like I don't know how much you guys know, but like leafcutter ants, which are referenced in this book, like they don't eat the leaves that they cut. They cut the leaves, bring them back to the colony, and they grow fungus on those leaves that so they're like literally farming. So I just love that he like incorporated some actual entomology, but didn't get bogged down in the story with it and just made it super fun and vibrant. And I love the little hints of the rest of the world that were given about like different hives and colonies and spiders weaving fortunes in their webs and things like that. It hinted at a lot. It gave you enough meat on the bone for a great issue 1 and introduced us to this world that I'm really excited to continue exploring.
I was a little confused only in the beginning because, if you haven't read this, there are ants and beetles, but there's also humanoids riding these things. And so I was a little confused as to, because the ant people have ant, like whatever these things are, Ryan can tell me, coming off their faces. They're little ant
or mandibles.
Mandibles are little ant-like themselves, but then the people riding the beetles aren't beetle-like. So I was trying to figure out how the human side worked. It doesn't really matter, but that was the only thing that tripped me up on this. Otherwise, an excellent issue, I thought. I also thought
there's a map at the back.
Maps are great. I also thought that this is not a problem. It's just when the ants are fighting the beetle people and then they all get killed by the lawnmower. I thought it was like locusts or something because they said a storm came and I thought they were being eviscerated by like another creature, but it turned out they were being killed by the lawnmower. I liked it though.
So I was kind of all over the map with this. I saw I looked through, basically what I do is when I look through the list, I'll see a number 1 from Image. When there's a number 1 from Image, I'll check it out. But I will tell you immediately, Bug Wars made me like, I don't know if I like that title. And I was like, it's Jason Aaron. And okay. So right away, I have to read it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm looking at the cover and I'm kind of thinking, I'm glad I didn't look at it very closely because it tells you a lot. It tells you, that there's these sort of whatever's going on in the grass, but also behind them, there's a regular human with a, modern industrial spray can. So that's a mix. But so I didn't notice that. And as I was reading through it at the beginning, I was like, this is like, it's like an 80s cartoon show.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot. And I thought for a little while in the first bit, I was like, is this all it's going to be? Because I wasn't super into that. Like, it's kind of fun or whatever, but how far does it go is like the ants going, all the, the 60s Jack Kirby and Stan Lee sort of dialogue and fighting, all right, fun. And then there's a very strong sort of smash cut to the bigger world. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like right away that pulled me in, whereas, is almost the opposite of what you said, Ryan. And then we sort of learn about this story that's happening above the story. And there's
a mystery there too. Something happened to his dad where he was an entomologist and in his basement lab, he was killed by the bugs, but he shouldn't have. It looks like he's been torn apart. So it looks like something happened, whether he was in the bug world and died there or what. But now there's a mystery as to what happened to the father, which has affected their whole family. The one kid is afraid of bugs. The other kid's all into bugs. The wife's got a lot of trauma. And so there's a lot of layers here.
And no one's dealing with it.
And Josh, you pointing out the 80s cartoonness of this all. Also, I think one of the things that I felt reminded of while I was reading this is the Goosebumps series, which was huge when I was a kid. And like there were elements of this that felt very Goosebumps. The fact that a kid being transformed, a secret in the basement, like all of those, a new house that's being moved into by a family with trauma.
This is like every third 80s boys cartoon that was syndicated I think
somebody's riding a beast.
Mr. Stein was piggybacking off of that, but it was very, like there's sectors and there's 100 other things.
I also don't know that we've seen Jason Aaron do the fake ad insert in an issue before. And he had the fake bug spray ad with the cockroach saying, "Please no, I have 200 children."
That was funny. It was funny.
Well, and the thing that I thought was really funny was all the different names of the products that he has. So he has the Headless Cockroach Glue Motel, Anthill Hiroshima, Lawn Napalm, Screaming Mosquito Inferno Zapper, and Spider Baby Bonfire Super Chill.
I mean, like he And we said this last week, literally last week, is that you tell me this is a Jason Aaron book. I go, I see that. But then there's a lot of things in here where I was like, that man contains multitudes, is what I'm getting at. Like there's a sense of humor. There's there's little Easter eggy things in here that I don't sort of think is something that he does. And again, we talked about Jason Aaron just a lot now, but Mahmoud Asrar,
so good.
He shows up and he does the job that needs doing, and he does it really well. I mean, he is. I kind of forget about it. Maybe he's not sort of showing up all that often, but he really is one of my favorite artists. And also just to see, we've been following his work for a million years, and it's really cool to see, him get to the level he's at. Where you're just like, wow, this guy's as good as anybody out there right now.
I would say
these pages are full of detail. There's a lot of world building he's got to do, and then he's got to do real life stuff. There's no like standard superhero aspect to this. This is fantasy plus family drama, and he's doing the pages with as much dynamism as anything.
But there's also just a lot
where they're
of
all killed by the rotate. Like it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just all this action war stuff. Again, just you're right out of the Conan books.
And dongs.
Yeah, we really get a view of like the up the butt cod piece in that one page you were talking about.
Well, there's a dude who's going into battle flapping in the breeze.
That's how the Celts would do it.
I'm just saying that's also what happened.
And probably
he's jumping with an axe and anyway, a lot of 2-page spreads in this one. The first whole opening battle is a series of 2-page spreads, which seems to be a thing happening a lot more lately. Or I'm just annoyed because I'm reading it this way.
I'm saying if you're gonna make me turn my little iPad over, then you better make it worth it. But he did.
This is a good issue. I'm happy for it. I'm looking forward. There's a lot here that can be, dug into, and
I would dare say Mahmoud Asrar is almost approaching like a Stuart Immonen level of.
I can see that. There's parts of this that look like him. I don't know. He's got like a really good sense of feeling like it's both really sort of full but loose at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the right amount of cartooniness. Like if you look at the human faces, they do what they're supposed to, but then but some of it takes on almost like a photorealistic quality. And then when you look closer, you see that there is actually a lot of design there. It's just great drawing. And the acting, how all the people feel because of their faces. That kid's sad, that kid's angry. And I know that's like, that's the job, but it doesn't mean everybody can do it. So many people can't, like everybody looks kind of the same, and you have to infer what they're feeling and thinking and doing from the dialogue. And if you were to take these letters out of this book, and this is always, I think, the greatest compliment you get about an artist, you can kind of pretty much tell what's going on and what they're thinking. And he's really doing like the Ryan Otley, like guts a flying.
Green, big old green guts everywhere.
Yeah.
Lots of guts, lots of evisceration this issue.
Their family name is the Slaymakers.
Yeah.
There's
no subtlety about this one. I same as you. Your name is Josh. I almost went to Ron. I'm getting to that point in my age where I call all the names out to get to the one I'm looking for. I actually missed this one originally on my pull list, and then when I saw what it was, I went back and added it. For the same reason, I saw Bug Horse and I was like, but I'm glad I did. It was good.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I didn't know what my pick was going to be, but you put that there. I was like, all right, yeah, I get that. That works.
Let's move on to DC versus Vampires.
Nothing came close.
DC versus Vampires, World War V, Darkness and Light, #1, a one-shot tie into the World War V miniseries that featuring 2 stories, one called Darkness, one called Light, written by Matthew Wilson, both. And there was a point in this issue where I thought, I don't think the Ring can do that, but I thought, oh, fuck it. Who cares? Who cares?
I think there was. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think
it was the first story. Wonder Woman rips Guy Gardner in half, and the second story, he has used the Ring to create all the organs he needs to survive. And I was like, I don't think that's gonna happen. But
you know what?
I didn't care though.
Like he said it, and I didn't immediately go, can't do that. I had to think about it, and what I did like about this is that the ring is all about willpower. That's
Yep.
green. That's the whole thing. And so Guy Gardner is often treated as kind of a joke character, but the fact is he's been a Green Lantern for a really long time. If you
Yep.
could say he has everything, it is the willpower. And so he's just exacting extreme force of will and concentration to keep himself alive at every given minute. And like, there's the point where he's like, well, do you sleep? He's like, nah, I don't need to. And he's gone a little crazy. He's a little Howard Hughes. And I thought I just thought it was really smart.
Well, he has to, because if he falls asleep, then the ring stops giving him a
Right.
fake body and he dies.
I do remember I read a Green Lantern novel. I believe it was a Kyle Rayner based novel where there was one of the Guardians explains to Kyle that like when he puts on the ring does take his physiology and optimize it. So like his metabolism is more efficient. He's able to like go for longer periods without oxygen, so he can travel in space and stuff like that. So I feel like the ring does already do some work on the wearer's physiology to make them a more efficient organism overall. So I kind of bought the idea that Guy Gardner could push that to its limit and keep himself alive artificially.
It's not completely out of the realm. I just saw it and I was like, well, all right, whatever. So
I also like that he's the guy who did it, and the way that he does it is kind of creepy. He's given himself like the millipede body, and
when he shows his internal organs, there's like a rat in a wheel spinning that's like running around, keeping him going, and so like it's a little silly, and I think the thing where it's constantly changing to me is the part where I was like, well, visually it's interesting that every panel he's got like a different lower half, but feels like that would take almost more work and thought than just.
But I thought that is a visual representation of like this guy doesn't have it fully together.
Right, he's not.
And that's how it's showing. And in that way, you want to talk about the comic book form. That's fantastic. So every time I don't know what the script looked like, but every time the artist can be like, all right, I'm gonna do this thing, and it's just playful and fun. And one of the things I always loved about Green Lantern, it's one of the things that Hal Jordan isn't the best at. I loved the sense of humor that Ron Mars, Kyle Rayner era, like that Green Lantern had a big sense of humor about how they did this stuff.
You're not a beams and bubbles guy.
No, it's fine, but it was really fun. I just remember like there's a story where like he makes a giant, mecha robot, or there's a time where like he had to go through the universe and he, instead of making a spaceship or flying along, he made himself like an old convertible Cadillac, right? Or like a monster truck when needed. And I was like, if you were having fun with it, this is the kind of things you do. But yeah, I this probably would have been my pick of the week, just because a lot of things happen in this that were really unexpected. You have an entirely fresh take on the Alfred character and putting him in a role that we have not seen. And he is on the cover of this book. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you're not looking to sell a lot of issues based on the cover if it's Alfred flying around the way. You're only getting diehards there.
It's funny because we all know that's Alfred, but he looks so much like Sinestro.
That's true.
And it throws you off a little bit, but the first story is really interesting, where we meet Harper Row, the character, that Batman.
I had to look her up again, and
she was was it 10 years ago what that was, and her brother Cullen, and they get taken by the vampires, and Harper becomes sort of like Wonder Woman's little like pet little sister type, and that was I thought that was an interesting story.
And you get this sense of like, oh, there is Diana in there.
Yeah.
And you kind of hope maybe, but that's not what's happening. But it kind of is a little.
And that first story begins with like sort of a great Inglourious Bastards sort of, hiding under the floorboards, but it's really hard to do that with a person who has superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked her.
I like the art from Nicola. How did we come down on this before the show?
Let's go with Chimija.
Nicola Chimija. I thought it was really fun. The panel where she rips the floorboards up to reveal Cullen and Harper was really fun and scary at the same time. Really, it feels with a piece of Otto Schmidt, who's doing the main books. Doesn't feel totally out of the realm.
No.
And I thought it was a really fun story that, I didn't expect her to rip Guy Gardner in half in the first story, and in the second story deal with the ramifications of, like, I didn't expect that much connectivity between the two. Usually we have two stories that are totally different.
So you've got 3 page turning like moments.
Yeah.
Ripping Guy Gardner in half, and ripping a person in half again. That's like a Warren Ellis addition to our world. You know,
Mhm.
that's or Frank Miller, whoever, but like a post 86, like that became a thing that you see. But it's Wonder Woman doing it. So that's like, ooh, and it was unexpected to a certain extent. Next thing to find out that he's alive and all this stuff is going on with him, and he's gonna be Yoda to Alfred's Luke. And then the last one is that he's not dead again, you know, and that would like those were delightful. A lot of things happened, you know, in that
Yeah.
small amount of time.
And with Daniel Bayliss, the artist in the second story, a cleaner, more cartoony style, but is still within the vein of this world they've created with
Mhm.
with DC Arts Empires, the look of feel of it. And so I thought this was a really, I mean, you know, we talked about this to death about how expanding this world out further and further the same way they did with Deceased, and it really is working with this particular whatever alchemy that works with the DC zombies and DC vampires. It actually is working really well. It's an interesting thing.
Matthew Rosenberg is really he reminds me of Greg Rucka in the sense that you can have this book, Tom Taylor too, I guess to a certain extent, is you can have these books that are not I don't know, they're not like bombastic in the way that you lead off a Superman book and be like the big person writing it. Like he's not that top A tier person, but he's better than them because he's just putting in so many little things that work that are maybe a little harder to sell. You know, it's like we would always talk about Injustice or what was it, Deceased. You know,
Mhm.
Tom Taylor, he would have all these little notes in it that
Mhm.
just reminded you of the great parts of these characters, and it's hard to sell that. You know, it's like this, you know, and it really is like now the world changes forever. That's actually happening here, but that's not the exciting part about it. The exciting part is just how interesting the story is and the world is and how it keeps moving forward in a way that you want to know more constantly. Greg Rucka was very good. He was a novelist. That was the way that he thought. That is a tough sell for comic book people. I think that's why he never, you know, he was never Bendis. He was never, it's more of the thinking readers story, but in a way that's very fun and very palatable and not like overly thinky or trying to be strange. Like it's just it's like real good
Yeah.
all the time, and it never makes you feel like you're being talked down to, or they're trying to, or he's trying to like substitute excitement for thoughtful plot. Like it all works in
Yeah.
a great way, like a great dramatic TV show in this genre. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
I think that's why it's been so much fun to continue reading the more and more of these issues taking place, you know, in further corners of the world. And
Mhm.
it's exciting. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we got more comics to talk about. Let's discuss our next book, One World Under Doom, #1 from Ryan North and RB Silva. I think this probably would be my pick of the week. It was this or Bug World War. This is the big event, the Doom event that was, you know, teed off with him getting the Sorcerer Supreme powers, and it's essentially this is something we talked about on a previous show, a conceptual sequel or remake to Emperor Doom, which is one of my favorite Marvel uh, Elseworld stories. It was a OGN. I think it was their first OGN, or maybe their second one, in which Doom took over the world. This is a similar thing. He's taken over the world now, and the heroes are fighting back, even though some of the things he's doing may not be so bad, which is the same thing that happened in Emperor Doom.
I love it. I can't think of another example in the past where they were like they finished their event and they kicked off the new one, which was a really big deal. And then the publisher was like, "But just wait here for 4 months." And they dealt with everything, and now they brought it back. And I keep remembering it's like, oh well, oh yeah, and it's super interesting. Like
Yeah,
it's a great setup. It's a great sort of place, and they had. I mean, it was still happening in real time in the book, so they just had Doom like go behind the green wall, and we're like, I guess we'll see what he does when he's ready. I don't know when the vampire story ended, but it was a while ago.
right. That's when he got the power. Was at the end of what was it called? I don't even remember what it was called.
30
Something
Days of
Night,
Night.
right? Something
I don't
Night.
know.
I don't know. But you know, here he has, you know, unleashed into the world, or at least said, you know, revealed to the world, this is who I am. I'm now in charge. I have all of the leaders of various countries in my pocket. He changes the flags out to the Latvian Doom flag all over the world. You are all essential. The world is essentially one big Latveria now, and I am in charge. And what that means is I'm going to take care of you. You're going to have beautiful health care. You're going to have free education. You're going to have a better life. But I'm going to make all the decisions, and you do not get to make any decisions. And so, that's the pull, right? Like, it's like, those sound great. However,
your name is Doom.
Your name is Doom, and you're still a dictator. And so that was the problem with Emperor Doom. In that one, it was all about mind control. He was using the Purple Man to control everyone's mind. Here, he's using his magic. And the heroes get together, and they're going to go do something about it. But first, Hydra goes in under the leadership of Baron Zemo, and they go in to fight Doom. And they're there for a while. Nobody knows what's happening behind the green wall. And then they have a little public service announcement saying, "Hey, we're all buddies now. We're in Doom's corner. This guy's great." And only to find out that that's a Doom bot, and Baron Zemo's dead, which I thought was a pretty big reveal. Although I don't believe it. Although it could be, if he is, he'll be back at some point.
But I mean, the big takeaway is that the Avengers get played twice in this
badly.
book. Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting here is that one of the interesting things here is that you don't know where Doom's coming. Like you don't like, maybe because we've seen so many versions of him. You don't really. Well, maybe he would be good at this. Maybe. There's like, are the heroes going to be wrong? They're getting filled. Like, what is the mistrust? What's the problem? And luckily you have an incredibly smart writer in Ryan North who can really ride all these lines, where in the middle of it, you're just like, I don't know what the right thing for any of these people to do is. And they were like, see, we told you Doom was lying. And he's like, yeah, I was, but and then he makes a point. You're like, all right. And it's very interesting to like, it's hard to read something like this at this time and not be like, is there a political allegory going on here? And I was like, I don't think there is. I think I'm just putting it into it because nothing's like a match for the world.
No, not at all. But that he does pull the ultimate trump card where they reveal the heroes reveal that I didn't mean that. Where the heroes reveal that Zemo is a Doombot, and they've been lying to everybody. And he's like, "Yeah, I lied. I killed that fucking Nazi, and I killed that other fucking Nazi, and now they're dead because they're Nazis, and I hate them." And everyone's like, "Yeah, move. It's pretty good."
He's like, and I tricked his men into building hospitals for you, and you put a stop to that. Also,
and I have a giant dinosaur.
Josh, you always point out that how intelligent Ryan North is whenever we talk about his books, and you're correct. He is an incredibly intelligent guy and writer and storyteller. He did also get stuck in a hole, so let's not forget that.
Right, but look what he made out of that.
Yeah,
but he's also smart enough to go, I did a dumb thing.
One of the greatest Twitter threads of all time. Look up Ryan North stuck in a hole.
Yeah,
I thought the art from R.B. Silva was terrific. It has like almost an early Leo Francis Yu quality to it.
Oh. I almost think it had like kind of a Russell Dodderman.
A little bit. There's a lot of things going on here. I thought this felt like an event.
Yes.
It may not have the big cultural impact that events once had, where everyone was buying and talking about it, but an event had a je ne sais quoi to it when you read it, where it felt like a big deal, and this feels like a big deal. So I really enjoyed reading. I thought this was terrific.
I think you're right.
As good as a Marvel book as you could get going right now is this book.
Yeah, I could have made an argument for that too. I think
if you're breaking up into two teams, and you got two Captains America, maybe split them up. Put one on one team, put one on the other team.
You can't have two captains.
First of all, it's just dumb to have two Captain Americas, but they split up into two strike teams, and they had both Captains America on the same team.
It's so weird that they both have shields. I mean, the shield is supposed to be singular. It's the thing that gets handed between the two.
It's so dumb
to signify the transfer.
This is where we are,
and we know that original Flavor Cap has like a weird energy shield he could use instead of a.
He doesn't. That's a rumor you heard that is true. That's like Die Hard's after the third one, or
Indiana Jones's. After they rode off to the sunset.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. If you didn't pick this up because you're still wary about events 15 years after everyone hated them, this was terrific. If you're a Fantastic Four fan, this was terrific. If you're a Avengers fan, this was a terrific issue of Avengers. Like this was a really great comic. I thought this
Yeah,
was
I'm
really
looking forward to the crossovers in this. And the vampire one was good too.
Yeah.
Like,
It's got
you
the
know.
dinosaur. It's got the dinosaur Doom. The T-Rex.
That's one of
version
those
Doom.
things where like they created them for those 2 issues. They created all the dinosaur versions of everybody, and they were like, we can't not bring these things back, you know.
When you turned the page and he was riding that thing, I was like, oh shit, all right.
I
Here we
thought
go.
good move both Dooms.
Yeah.
That's the right way to go.
Let's talk about the Lucky Devils #2. I'm still on the fence in this book, Josh.
I definitely came closer to being on a side with this issue, because I think the other one I kind of didn't quite grasp what it was. We got introduced to the world and these kind of interesting things. But in this one, I understood it better. It's Monsters Inc. The devils go up and they try to make humans do bad things, which fuels their world. But we find out like hell and the devils are basically like us. They're workaday schmoes. There's a little bit of a different system. It sucks to be in hell. There's a point where like, why didn't you have ice cream? He's like, it's hell. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That was a good bit.
But didn't they have ice cream? Was he lying to him?
You know, I think later there was ice cream.
Yeah, later on they were eating the devils.
I did notice that, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's part of the changes that they're trying to wreak.
Oh,
Maybe they moved up. Maybe that's when they moved up to the next
Oh,
level. It wasn't as hot. They could have ice cream. I don't know. Like everybody is, however many levels there are.
It's like Scientology. You get to
Right.
ice cream and then you get to enlightenment with Xenu.
So, and then there's this really weird thing going on with these 2 devils, Rake and whatever, and they're trying to bring the system down by using their power to make people bad, to make these good people powerful. And I don't fully understand it, but I like there's a lot of
Well, they get promoted the more influence their people have.
Right. But they don't really want to be promoted. However, they're going to enjoy the perks that come with it anyway. Because
they get a nicer house, they get more money.
It's like they're trying to do the right thing, but they're also devils, and you're just, I don't know where it's going to go. I liked that there was a lot of structure led to the world that I didn't have last time. I kind of know where we're going. I think there were really smart social things and sort of, Brazil, like the movie, not the country, Brazil, like sort of office politics and stuff going on. And like the one guy's looking at their case. He's like, hey, you got moved up. I can't seem to get moved up. Like there's all this weird social stuff. There's a Jordan Belfort character in the beginning, a devil, who's trying to be like, you can all be like me up on level 9 or whatever it is. It's thoughtful. It's interesting. I enjoyed it. I'm not like, oh my God, this is my new favorite thing, but it took a step forward for me. I'm definitely more interested.
Yeah, I'm not out of it. And then this issue was according to the cover, the lust issue, but I didn't get that one at all.
There was some sex. There was several moments of sex, because the one lady protagonist devil.
Yeah, but she wasn't.
Produces, but then I was like, well, that's weird.
The nurse having sex wasn't one of the characters who we follow.
Right, but they used it to I think it's like a theme that shows up in things. And then there's sort of lust for the creature comforts that they get. I'm going to get in this. So the next one's going to be a different gluttony. Yeah, I'm not down on it. I'm not fully on board. Like by the time of this issue of 8 Billion Genies, I was in. Sure.
Because I'm still figuring out how I feel about it.
I like that it is actually, it's very unique. I don't read it. Like I just said, there's a couple, I said it's Monsters Inc. or whatever, but really that's just the shell of it, or the skeleton, actually. Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
I'm not in the right place at all. So the place that we are going to move on to here is ways to support the show if you like this show. So there is, stay with me now, patreon.com/iFanboy. We are a listener supported and viewer supported entity. You can directly support the show and become part of the community over on Discord and Facebook. We have places for you to hang out with like-minded folk, to talk about utter bullshit and nonsense all day, like the founders of the internet intended. You can vote on the patron pick. You're eligible for a patron power, and you can join the monthly patron hangout at different levels. $10 or higher, you will get an ad-free version of this show every Saturday. Plus, meaning you get the show a day early. Plus, there is an after show that we record after this one and talk about the books that didn't make this go. Those are available just to patrons. There's a discount if you sign up for a full year instead of just monthly. You can send or receive gift memberships. Theoretically, if you send them, someone should be able to receive them. But we did make sure that that was a possibility. We just want to send them out willy-nilly. They have to be received because that's the point. I know you know how to reserve a car. It's the holding. Go to patreon.com/iFanboy/gift for more info. iFanboy.com. It's our merch store. We have 20 designs currently. There are 7 new designs on the way for 2025. I couldn't tell you what one of them was at this exact moment, but that's normal for me. They can be put on shirts and all sorts of things. We're very proud of the stuff that we have up there. It all comes with our personal seal of approval, which is why some of them that we love are maybe less popular than others, but that's where we are. That's what we do. We don't make change. There is iFanboy.com/support. You can do a direct donation via PayPal there if you don't want to deal with any of that. Some people do that sometimes. These are all optional things. These are you can listen to this whether you do any of these or not, but if it's important to you and you want to support it, then please do, and we appreciate that. iFanboy.com/Amazon. There's a general shopping link there, so it's an affiliate account. You know that works. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. Bookshop.org. We have that's a bookseller. Local bookseller aggregate program, and there will be links on the website to buy books through that where appropriate. So for like the Booksplodes or something like that. Thank you to everybody. Let's move along to the more show.
Let's move along, but first, before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. All right, so let's talk about Camgirl. Did either of you read Camgirl?
This is a comic book.
AWA. This was a comic book. AWA Studios. Sarah Cho, CP Smith. That's all they listed on there in the credits. There's clearly must be a letterer or a colorist, but they didn't list them anywhere I could find. Sarah Cho.
So artists and writers don't include. It's in the name. Artists and writers and others.
That's it. It wasn't on the website. It wasn't in the comic. I don't know. So Sarah Cho wrote Red Light, which was a miniseries I read from AWA, which was about a sex worker android AI bot trying to find sentience, sort of like a sexy Pinocchio. And then so I checked. So I said, I'll check out their next book.
Put that on the cover, sort of like a sexy Pinocchio.
Camgirl is a one-shot about a camgirl who ends up with a stalker fan, and it's just a oversized mystery story. I thought it did a really, really good job of feeling claustrophobic and feeling paranoid and feeling really the weight of, she's just trying to get by for various reasons. She's had to resort to being a cam girl, and some fucking lunatic guy is now ruining it for her. And it's just like,
we do.
And so I thought it was good. I thought it was good. It's very sexy in terms of there's lots of nudity and stuff, but I thought it was a really well done one-shot story about this woman. She was interesting. I felt like I knew her really well, and I was impressed with it. So, I think there's a slight uptick in erotic thrillers and comics between this and the stuff that Maria Lovett's been doing over at Image. But it's interesting. It's not a genre that really gets used in comics a lot, so I thought it was interesting.
Alan Moore is finally making his second impact.
Let's talk about Green Lantern Corps #1, or the Ron Richards Memorial way of saying Green Lantern Corps #1. This is the new series that doesn't involve Hal Jordan. He's leading the other book. There's Guy Gardner again. But it involves all of the other Green Lanterns of Earth, of which there are many. Although Kyle's at the cover, but I don't think he's in the issue.
What do you mean Sector 2814?
Yeah, but they're all Earthlings. All these Green Lanterns are Earthlings. Kyle's in the other book too. I don't know why he's on the cover here, but Ron, Ryan, what did you think? If I
thought
call
this was fine.
Yeah.
Good, not great. It reestablished. I mean, I just feel like every other Green Lantern book. I think I said this last time I was on the show. Every other Green Lantern book I pick up feels like it's re-justifying the need for there to be a Green Lantern Corps in the first place. And it's like, okay, I accept that there's a Corps. Let's now tell me a story.
Yeah, it's tough because the stories before that have been about how bad it's been to have a Corps. So they've had. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying totally.
Well, it's also like, it's an intergalactic police force. So either you're pro-police and you tell a story where these guys act like cops, or you're commenting on whether or not it's a good thing to have. I mean, it's the final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like they
Well,
were.
I mean, I disagree with that. I think that it's been like it was the cores were bad. It was not the police aspect. It was they were run by corrupt
The Guardians,
government.
yeah.
No, not the Guardians. They were run by the World Federation, which they mentioned, the Galactic Federation, which was a group of corrupt aliens who were using it to subjugate and to conquer other planets. So anyway, what was interesting about this was much in the Marvel tradition of bringing your villains into your team. Sinestro is now back on the Green Lantern Corps, and all the problems that causes because he's really, really good at it. He's just also a villain. So I thought that was interesting. That was the most interesting part of the book.
Yes,
So I thought this was just fine. That was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite understand how people were manifesting constructs in the different emotional spectrum colors without a ring to guide the construct. So like I was a little confused by how that was happening.
They offhandedly mentioned it. It was dealt with in the previous books where the batteries exploded and sort of sent the emotional energy out into the universe, and so it's manifesting in people or aliens or whatever in very intense ways. So if you get like absorb a bunch of energy, you're essentially a Green Lantern without the ring.
Situation. Yellow Lantern or whatever. Yeah.
I picked it up and looked through it, but I was like, this looks exactly like all the other ones that I sort of, there was a lot of talking and it was too many characters, and I've learned like over time, like most of those characters don't mean anything to me at this point. I don't remember who they are.
There's too many for sure.
And I don't know, I just feel like they haven't really stuck. It was like whatever that period was where they increased all the family sizes a lot. And I like a Green Lantern Corps with a lot of wacky aliens instead of a lot of different humans.
Yeah.
Like I think that's much more, that was always the thing that was fun about it. You got your big blobby one and your planet size one and your little squirrel one, whatever it is, so filling it with humans is way less fun.
There's way too many Earth lanterns, but also a lot of these books could benefit from just back to basics. Like Green Arrow is back to basics. Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern could just needs to go back to basics. Aquaman's kind of even back to basics. Like just go back to basics. And
it feels like such a good place to do like a procedural, like turn it into a space police procedural or something like, and that's hard. And I think comic book writers are not historically very good at that, nor do I think the audiences respond to it. But I mean, like Gotham Central, they're cops, like make a bunch of them and stuff,
Well, they could really, I don't disagree with that at all, but I think they could really just benefit from like, don't keep referencing just like start fresh. Don't worry about what happened in the previous two arcs. Like let's just start over and deal with that. That's I think how they could best deal with it.
Listen,
Batman,
John Stewart, get over your guilt from what happened and all the other things you're guilty about. I know, but like it's always just like it's like he's the reluctant guy, and then there's the overbearing person, and it's just like it's been the same thing over and over and over.
Absolute Batman number 5. I thought this was the least fun issue so far.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying the series all along and felt the same way too. I thought the reveal of what he did with the money and using the money to create the bat signal, I was like, interesting concept. I don't know how that works long term. Like, is it just a pile of money on top of a light? And I have to laugh.
It was all burning up at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I have to laugh at how much this version of Bruce is insistent on his very blocky, chunky bat symbol that barely looks like a bat. Like it's abstracted almost to the point of just like, that's not what a bat is shaped like.
I have no problem with that. I love it. It's a shovel, or an axe.
An axe, yeah.
I like that, and it's one of the things that sort of stands out for me about this as being sort of different and interesting. I gotta say, I love what this looks like so much. I don't know that I notice many things about the story that I like or don't like. If that, like, I mean, I do. I thought that actually this sort of cleared up. Like, all right, who's the villain and what are we doing now? And it's a little like the Doom thing in that, like, he kind of has him to a certain extent in the logic of all the things. And I don't know. I like that it's different enough from Batman that had been happening still.
Dragotta draws a great Gordon.
Yeah,
It's just a really, really good drawing of Jim Gordon. I love the character model. It's just really awesome.
Yeah, no, that
animation.
scene at the funeral was excellent.
It's still a very good book. I just felt this issue was the least exciting of the five so far. Which doesn't mean it's bad. It was.
It also felt the least meaty. Like I feel like all the other issues have taken me just literally longer to read than this one, and this one kind of blew by. And by the end, I was like, oh, okay.
But there's, I mean, like, I understand that, but there's also a lot of pages that are like action pages that don't have a ton of dialogue, and they're chock full of panels and great art and great sequences, but it is by necessity it will go by quite quickly, which I think is intentional. There's a bunch of pages in here that are primarily action, things moving around. Batman falls off a building, hits a truck. There's tons of that, but they're gorgeous. I mean, like, there's a lot of like there's a bit where Batman gets run over by a cop car and he sort of goes flying behind it, and it's very reminiscent of early pages in Dark Knight Returns. Like, this is like one of those things, like, it reminds me of Dark Knight Returns without really being like an homage to it or like trying to do that style. There's definitely an influence of it here, but it's fun.
Certainly the physical resemblance. Geiger 11. I felt a lot of things come to a head here. We've got a full interweaving of the Geiger story and the Junkyard Joe story, as well as the reveal of the female Geiger. And the third thing that's happening is, which seems to be a pattern in a lot of books I'm reading, is God, the main character is an asshole. I just need him to chill out a little bit, because I don't know why anyone's trying to help him other than trying to, what he can bring to the table, because he's just being a jerk to everybody. What do people think of this issue?
You're right. This is the one where we're sort of definitely starting to bring all the threads together. And that's where I kind of remember, right, he's doing like a whole universe and really leaning into it. I love that there's that timeline at the end of each issue. Like, you're here, this is when this happened, and it's taken up 2 pages in every issue. But I really like that these things are so thoughtfully tied together. Many of the things, we haven't seen the things happen or why they matter. We know that he's going to meet up with Redcoat soon. We know we haven't seen what happens to all those characters. We haven't seen, we're at a certain point over in Redcoat, and we're coming to the present where Geiger is now, or actually 25 years from now. I love the shared universe. Like, I can't think of anybody who's made a shared universe outside of Marvel and DC that was so compelling to me. I know Jeff Lemire kind of did it, but those were all sort of analogs to superheroes in a way, whereas these are all just completely pulpy comic book, not necessarily superhero characters that are coming together, and it's neat.
Yeah, I mean, this scratches a similar. I have played the Fallout games and watched the Fallout show, and this scratches a very similar itch. And I mean, it's the radioactive wasteland after a nuclear fallout and war. But to me, I say that as a compliment. I think it's doing a lot of interesting stuff within that world and that scenario. And yeah, I'm just here for a 2-headed wolf.
It's different than a line of books, like the Hellboy books are a line of books that are technically a shared universe, and Invincible did several spin-off books. But this is such a library of different books of different kind of characters living in different seeming worlds, but they are in a shared universe. So I think nothing else that I can think of off the top of my head matches what he's doing here outside of DC and Marvel.
And they're all moving in a direction. Like, it's just, they used to, a long time ago, all the people at Marvel were called architects, but I was like, this is that from scratch. You took the guy who was the best at he was the best at recreating the best version of that DC had ever done.
Right.
And now he came in here, and he's not, I mean, like, and that's a big deal. Like, he's not doing superhero analogs. That's what so many of these guys do, is that they come out and they're like, okay, now I get a chance to tell my Superman story. But for Jeff Johns, Superman over there was Superman, and he told his Superman story. And here he's like, these are completely different fucking things. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the founding of the company, right? It was all analogs of what those guys were doing at Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So those are the books we want to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron of the show gets a chance to vote to add a book to the rundown. We call it the Patron Pick, and this week it was like a 3-1 margin over the second place book. It was a blowout. The winner was Bug Wars #1 from Jason Aaron. Mahmoud Asrar, Matthew Wilson, Becca Carey. We talked about it already. It was a pick of the week. So what we'll do now is we'll just rate the book ratings out of 5 ratings for Bug Wars.
Ratings.
I'm going to give it a 4 1/4.
I'm going to give it a 4 3/4.
4.75, 4.25, Josh.
I'll go with the 4.25. I feel like that's right. I feel like that's the place to be. With a slight bump in the fact that I
4.35.
I didn't have very high expectations, and then they even dipped a little and then came up. And then when we talk about it, you're like, oh, there's a lot of good here. There's so much good here that is put together in a fun way. So yeah, 4.25 with room to grow.
And are you sticking with it? Yes, I am sticking with it.
Yes, I'm sticking with it.
I'm out. No, yeah, of course I am.
And the final question, which we usually ask second, which I messed up. Were you reading this before it was the patron pick? And the answer was yes, I had read it before it was the patron pick. I had planned on reading it.
Same.
After I discovered what it was.
Yeah, I think I was sort of in the same boat. I actually didn't have this on my pull list until I saw who the creative team was, and then I went back and would have read this regardless of the patron pick, but was happy that the patrons alerted me to it.
All right, thanks for voting. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Every patron can vote to add a book to the rundown, but at the $5 or higher level, you get your own superpower live on the show. We call it the patron pick. This week's patron is Will IV.
Will IV, thank you for the steady drip of cash. Will. Will's power is that Will can disable any vehicle, any car, truck, whatever, motor vehicle caught breaking traffic laws in his immediate area, but the method by which the vehicle is disabled is completely random. So if he sees somebody like roll through a stop sign and he like activates his power, it could result in a simple flat tire, and the person just has to like stop and change the tire. The engine could explode and he could kill everyone inside.
Is it random? So he doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
Okay.
So he has to be judicious in the infractions that he enforces with his power. If he sees somebody about to get run over in a crosswalk, he can disable the vehicle, but he might.
What if it explodes and kills the person walking across the crosswalk?
It could. It's a risk. But it gives him the ability to mete out justice on the road as a pedestrian or fellow driver as needed, which I think is sorely needed in many parts of these United States.
Are you an angry driver, Ryan?
No, I'm an angry pedestrian.
That's fair.
I've gotten yelled at by my members of my family many times because I have kicked cars with it that have cut me off in crosswalks.
It's very easy. It's very easy to feel self-righteous as a walker or a cyclist versus a vehicle.
Yes.
And given the fact that the vehicle rarely considers the fact that you are just a humble skin suit.
Right. You're not surrounded by a metal cage.
Right. Yeah. And the fact that like the anger seems to come around the fact that, and listen, there are shitty people walking and riding bikes, but for the most part, like they're just annoyed that they have to go out of their way by half a second.
Well, I mean,
not pay attention at all.
I read a post online once that was like, what if we told you that there was a way to get around this, your home city that was fun, got you exercise, carbon neutral, you never have to worry about parking. And it's like, it has all these benefits, but the downside is everyone else on the road is trying to kill you the entire time you're doing it. That's cycling in cities.
Yeah. I used to love riding my bike in New York City. I loved it.
I ride my bike around DC most of the time. And I'm not like, I try not to be a jerk, but Will has the ability to stop cars literally in their tracks if needed. When they break the law, they have to have violated something that he's witnessed. But
Connor, how many times have you seen a person on a cyclist get incredibly angry at a New York City cab?
Oh, a lot, all the time.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to stop and watch in the city.
One of my favorite YouTube videos is a guy who got a ticket from a New York City cop for like biking on the sidewalk, and he explained to the cop that the bike lane was blocked, and the cop said that doesn't matter. And so the rest of the video is this YouTuber just biking straight into parked cop cars that are blocking bike lanes over and over again. And just like flailing on their hoods and trunks and all this other stuff as he just slams into them on his bike over and over again. It's amazing.
All right. Thanks for being a patron, Will IV. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's how you can get on the show. The $5 or higher level gets your superpower for you. Hot and fresh. Let's move on to an email. We have one here from Kid Keith, who says, longtime listener, first time emailer. I've been thinking about this question for apparently 10 years or so. What are your most disappointing, memorable, never finished comic runs? I remember around the time I was getting back into comics, I picked up Southern Bastards and loved it. And it just kind of never got an ending. I'm not even sure it wrapped up an arc.
Nope.
It just stopped coming out. I'm interested in hearing about other runs I'm not aware of that just vanished. I understand the answer is often it's a money thing, but why does this tend to happen so often in comics? Why does this tend to happen in comics? So
it tends to happen in comics because the interesting things that are new ideas and the thing that you may not the thing that sort of they're trying out. So it's really like, if it's good, it's really compelling to not necessarily draw the audience that would need to sustain itself. New ideas are not often taken on, and nor is quality necessarily recognized at the time it comes on. This is one of those things, like a great TV show comes out, but it never gets a chance to build an audience, and so they stop making it. Sort of the same deal, I think.
I mean, it happens in TV all the time.
Yes.
It
happens in everything.
Well, I mean, the difference is a movie is made and finished, right? It doesn't, it's a single thing. It comes out. A comic, we talked about this last week, or maybe about serialized storytelling or whatever it was. So since comics being serialized storytelling, they're constantly coming out, which means at some point it's going to end before it's planned to. In the same way, a TV show, most TV shows are canceled and not ended. So TVs and comics, they tend to end as the same kind of frequency. The answer is always money.
Yeah, and comics are a relatively small creative team compared to a TV show or a movie. So it can literally be like one person, Damon Lindelof, doesn't turn in a script, so the book never gets finished, right?
Right, and then with Southern Bastards, the artist gets into a Me Too situation and the book stops coming out. Or it's often money. There's money reasons. It's they can't afford to keep doing it because a lot of these
that's a big
books
deal.
are done on spec from the image or the indie side, and if they can't afford it or they get an offer to do a paying job, then the other book just stops coming out, and that's just the reality of the economics of it. Again, because the product isn't finished. Like a TV show, at least it could get canceled and you never see the completed episodes, but they've completed the episodes. They've happened. A comic is they're working on every month to get it out. It could end at any time. But I'm trying to think of other.
And I feel like with comics, it only takes like if one cog falls out of the sequence, then it doesn't. That can derail the entire thing. Like it can be hard to fill those.
Sure, even in Marvel, like remember the Mighty Thor, Josh, or the one what was that called, where that book ended prematurely because Chris Samnee got bumped up the ranks to a higher paying job at Marvel, and so they ended the book.
The Damon Lindelof book I was referring to was that Ultimate X-Men versus Ultimate or Ultimate Wolverine versus Ultimate Hulk from when Lost was the biggest show on television.
And sometimes it's economic, and other times, some comic book artists like it just like they lose it. Like
they don't get along now anymore.
Well, I was gonna say like or they just like the motivation.
They lose interest in
you can't finish, or something else comes along, or what like they don't have that drive. Some people are really good at selling something, but not necessarily, and there's other people who will, finish at nothing. This is a tough question because I've taken it just as rote that it's a thing that happens, and when something disappears, I don't think of it again. Usually.
I have one. I think we've been.
I was trying to think of other ones. I can't remember.
We've been asked a version of this question before. The one I always go back to, and I think because of the way my comic book nerd brain works, I'll explain why. Fell, the Warren Ellis, Ben Templesmith book, the Image book. The reason I find that one so frustrating is because they put out enough issues to do one trade, and then they put out one issue after that first trade, and that's when it stopped. So that it's like the hanging Chad. It's like that one little. I could have it all collect. I could have everything that did come out in one neat little volume.
You still could.
Don't.
If they wanted to, they could put the volume out with all those issues.
I have the volume that was put out, and then I have that one issue. And as a comic book completionist, it just drives me nuts. I know that's, and I thought it was a great series. It was, very dark detective book by Ellis and Templesmith that I really liked. And I think I would be also remiss if I didn't point out the Scarlet Witch Hawkeye closet.
Yeah, but that's
different.
That's
just
not a thing that never ended. Yeah.
So I don't tend to remember more recent ones, and I was trying to look up some things. Fell, Southern Bastards, Manhattan Projects, which I wasn't reading. Raquetto. I was like, geez.
I remember Raquetto. I like Raquetto.
But one of the things that I tend to remember a lot of them from when I first started reading comics like seriously. So in the early 2000s, and when I was sort of like first finding Vertigo and all this other cool stuff that I'd never really known about. And there was the first one I remember, and I always think of this, Ed Brubaker, who I only just sort of started noticing. He did a series called Dead Enders.
Yeah, that was the most famous one at the time.
With Warren Pleece. And I really loved the art. I could not tell you what it's about, but I know that it went about 7 issues and then it just stopped. An unfinished story.
Didn't it get canceled? Wasn't it like a Vertigo?
Yeah, no, it's canceled. Like,
yeah.
So either way, you know, it was, and which is like even worse. Like nobody's reading it. This sucks. There was a great series from that era. Steve Gerber, Howard the Duck, Steve Gerber did a prison series called Hard Time. I have the first trade of it, and I was buying it in issues, and it was this really cool, weird book. It just stopped. Like they couldn't keep doing it for whatever reason. And I feel like there's lots of examples. The Exterminators from who wrote it? I know Tony Moore was on it initially as the artist. Simon Oliver, I think, was the writer.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
That didn't finish.
That was a great book.
It was a really good book, and it's one of those things like there wasn't enough people to keep it going. Lazarus kind of is that.
Yeah,
they keep teasing it, but in the same vein, Greg Rucka's other book, The Forged, there hasn't been an issue since July.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking of that too.
I mean, it almost always 90% of the time it's money. It's a money problem. If they can't afford to keep doing it, another job comes along that'll actually pay them. They got to shelve it. Then suddenly you shelve it for 6 months. Do you have the energy or the will or the interest to keep going? But it's almost always because of money. If these people making comics were paid or made a good wage out of it, they would keep the stories going. But they don't. And when they disappear, it's usually because people aren't buying it enough to make it work.
Or they get better paying work that they have to concentrate on. And creatively, it's difficult to sort of go between those things and to find, this is hard stuff. I suspect there's probably no shortage of ADHD in the creative field of comic books, like going back and forth and having all your creative energy being like, I'm moving towards this thing, and then being taken off of it. You don't necessarily get it back the same way. I figure that's gotta have something to do with Saga. That it's not a money. They're making money hand over fucking fist.
You keep saying that, but Saga is coming out. It comes out regularly.
I know, but it was gone for a really long time.
They took the planned breaks for the artists, but
that was longer than the planned breaks.
It doesn't matter.
There was a point where it still
comes out. It comes out regularly.
It's gone to me. But
okay,
no, there was longer than planned break. I know
they took two hiatuses.
Right, one of them, but the second one was like years.
They said on purpose.
Bah.
Yeah, but you just stopped reading it. It doesn't mean it still comes out. That's fine. It's dead to you. It's just totally fine.
For a while, it felt dead, and then I forgot that it came back.
I know, because you mentioned it every time, and every time it still comes out.
I'm gonna keep doing it because I can't remember things.
I hate it when they fight.
Have you thought about Saga?
I stopped reading it. I thought the story
I'm still reading Saga.
But in general, I can't remember. It happens so often now that if it doesn't keep showing up in front of me, it disappears until somebody says something. You're like, oh yeah, forgot about that book.
Thanks for writing in, Kid Keith. Contact at iFanboy.com is how he did it. We want to hear from you. Get on the show. That was not an argument, by the way. There was a spirited discussion. But we like our spirited discussions, and we need you to write in to help spur them along. Now, really quickly, we had just a month ago, we had our 2025 update. This is our 20th year doing the show, our 25th year of iFanboy. We had a whole bunch of new things we added for that. We said there'd be more things coming. We have a small update, not update, but a new thing happening, new things that are coming. So we are refreshing our look and feel of iFanboy to celebrate this year. So we have some new logos, some new art happening. You'll be seeing this art on merchandise as you would in the store right now. You'll be seeing it, wherever you see our logos, they'll be swapping out. So we have a new iFanboy logo that if you're watching on YouTube, you can see on the screen right now. We have some new small badges, different styles. One is so celebrating the anniversaries with gold, and the other one is a sort of a bombastic new look at our regular logo. And these will all be, they'll start appearing wherever our logo is around the world. They'll start appearing soon.
You kept tickling things in my brain that were movie references, and I was trying so hard not to like you said something that was like iFanboy to flamethrower, and then you said, and then you said badges, and you know where that always goes, and it's hard.
So hopefully by the time this show is out, the logo swap over has begun. But since the way the time works, this is not live. Something always could have happened. But eventually, you know, if it hasn't happened already, you'll start seeing these logos appear wherever our logo is found. So if you like them at all, they'll be available on T-shirts and things at our Threadless store, and we are very excited about that. So that's another announcement from 2025. And there you go. So new logos. So let's finish the show. Let's talk about what is happening with our other podcasts. So this past week we had our Media Explode episode. We did the Saturday Night Live draft where Josh and Ron and I first we talked about the documentaries that celebrated Saturday Night Live's 50th year, but then we did a cast draft where we picked 7 cast members, 1 weekend up at Anchor, and 2 featured players, and that was a lot of fun. And
it happened again. You said 7 cast members, and I was like, when things start being polite and start getting real, this is what's like in my brain all the time.
So that was fun. You can find that on the feed behind this show. Coming up this coming week, we'll have our review of Captain America: Brave New World. That'll be on the feed this coming week. Should come out on Thursday. And then in 2 weeks, which would be the week after Captain America, Josh has his Talksplode. Do you want to talk about your Talksplode, Josh?
Yeah, I had a long conversation with Scott Snyder, who is a pretty good friend of the show for a long time, and we haven't talked to him in a bit. So you're gonna hear a lot about Batman, and you're gonna hear about Absolute Batman. You're gonna hear about All In, and he's not shy about sharing personal stories and struggles and how he approaches it. You know, a really sort of an open book kind of conversation with Scott about his career and life and the work and stuff like that. Could have, you know, he could have kept going. We could have kept going for some time, but I think you'll find it pretty interesting.
So look for that in 2 weeks, and then we hit March, and Sunday it's March, and we'll have our post Oscars Media Explode in March. We'll have our Watchmen Chapter 2 review that Ryan and I have already recorded, so you're definitely going to get it. And then we'll have our book Explode in March. So are we doing that book? Should I say what it is?
Sure, whatever. I don't care.
Okay, we're going to do Legends, the DC miniseries event from 1987, I believe. 86, 87, the event that kicked off the new post-crisis DC universe. John Ostrander, Lynn Wein, John Byrne. So we're going to do that miniseries next month. So check that out. If you want to read along with us, that's what we're doing. And finally,
I looked at like the tiniest bit of it, and I saw like a chin, and I was like, that's John Byrne. We recognize it. Earlier I said like, oh, some people can't make different comic book faces. Yeah. I'm pretty sure John Byrne can't, but I don't care.
Well, that'll be a good part of the discussion next month. In the meantime, you can find our library of over 1,400 shows over at iFanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold. Never miss a show, and find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, iFanboy.com on Blue Sky, and individually we are C.S. Kilpatrick, J.A. Flanagan, and Ryan Haupt on Instagram. Now it's Josh's turn.
I was getting to it. I was to throw up the horns first. Please consider writing us a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can tell my scripts over here. If you're listening to Pocket Casts, you need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. That's how it works. Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy, where you can watch the video version of this show and our special edition shows, and you can find an archive of all of our old differently produced video shows, affectionately known as the couch shows, but I would say it's Couches and Cons that ran from 2007, which is 18 years ago, to 2012, which was 13 years ago, and finally, and even the pilot, 2006, which was 19 years ago. And finally, join us on the iFanboy After Party exclusively on Patreon, where we will share all of our thoughts on the books that we read this week that we did not talk about in this rundown. Patreon.com/iFanboy for everybody at the $10 a month tier and up.
And that's the show. Thanks for listening. My name is Connor, and I'm tired.
My name is Ryan. I'm I'm hanging in there.
I'm
Your
Josh.
internet's not though.
I'm Josh. I'm mid-afternoon sleepy, which is a thing for me.
I think everyone doesn't like this study show like around 3 o'clock. That's why people take siestas in Spain because that's when
Yeah.
you're tired.
I'll nap. I'll do a 20-minute nap is that's my jam.
We'll be back
Oh.
next week. See you then. Bye bye.